Hello and welcome back to Planet Nibiru, where anything is possible. So it's been a couple of weeks since I put out a video, and I apologize for the absence. In that time, I've been studying a few topics that have really piqued my interest and I think have some real value in the search for truth. I've been looking at a couple of strange things kind of too, as well. Been looking at Scientology. There's some really strange things going on with that. But today we're going to be taking a look at a topic that is relevant to all of us in certain ways. And that is when your whole life flashes before your eyes. Now, have you ever had this phenomenon happen to you? If you haven't, I can tell you that it is certainly a real thing, and your whole life does indeed flash before your very eyes in an instant. This experience comes complete with sounds and scents and all the things that make up reality and make you feel as though you're actually there. It's almost like reliving your life in uber fast forward. It feels like everything you've ever experienced is happening all at once. But each thing is happening on its own, but in its entirety. It's kind of the craziest thing in the world, really. Now, first I will tell you about the times that it happened to me. Well, actually, I'm going to tell you about the first time it happened to me and what I felt and saw. And then, because basically the same exact thing happened both times that it happened. Your life, the circumstances around it were different, obviously, but the same exact thing happened. My life just flashed right in front of my eyes, and then I've read some stories of some other people, and it's exactly the same. Their lives flashed in front of their eyes, and it was very, very intense, and everybody who has experienced it, it's been strangely and oddly very, very, very similar, like almost exactly alike. So this is what makes me think that, obviously there's a lot to this phenomenon. It's very, very real, and it does happen to, I think, all humans at some time or another. Now, I'll first tell you about, obviously, the time it happened to me, and this first time it happened, I was young. I was probably like 13, actually, I was exactly 13 years old. I was swimming in the Swanee River somewhere in Georgia. Now, there's a whole bunch of backstory on why I was in Georgia and the Swanee River, but that's boring stuff about my life and has nothing to do with the phenomenon. But I was canoeing down the Swanee River, and we had stopped for lunch. At this point of the river, it's still basically in the Okefenokee swamp, and the river is little more than a canoe trail that goes through this swamp. Now, the trail's about 30 feet wide, and it's surrounded by swamp on both sides. Occasionally, there's going to be land on one side or the other, and it'll be like a little hill that comes up and, hopefully forms a nice plateau where you can pull over and walk around, maybe even camp if it's big enough. We found a nice little chunk of land that had risen up, and we decided it'd be a good place to stop and have lunch, which is what we did. So river food is basically camping food. It's food that doesn't spoil, and so we were probably eating some like Spam or Beanie Weenies, or deviled ham or something like that, and maybe some trail mix and either Kool-Aid or Tang, and that pretty much rounds out the rest of your lunch. Before we get back in the river, we wanted to jump in to cool off and swim for a bit. Now, the Georgia swamps are just ungodly hot, and there was a tree that had grown out over the river, and it looked like a great place to jump in from. So we're swimming, and we're climbing up this tree and jumping in and making tons of noise and having fun. Basically a bunch of 13-year-old kids, 13-year-old boys, jumping into the river and splashing, having all kinds of fun. Now, any thoughts of, because there's a lot of alligators in the Okefenokee swamp and on the Swanee River, so you got to put those thoughts out of your head, because you'd never get in the water if all you thought about was the fact that there were alligators in there somewhere. So we're swimming and we're enjoying this beautiful Georgia day, and it really was beautiful. The scenery, the being in the swamp, the Okefenokee swamp is very, very, very beautiful place. And so I climbed up the tree and jumped in the water, and I've done this maybe 5-6 times previous to this one time. And you jump in and you sink down maybe 10-12 feet and you swim to the top, and then you kind of rinse and repeat. You do it again. So this time I jumped in, and I thought I was at the top of this, or near the surface, but I wasn't. Now, the Swanee River is not clear water by any means. It's dark, kind of like iced tea. Literally, if you grabbed a clear cup of any type and filled it, just scooped water up out of the river, it would look like you had a glass of sweet southern Georgia iced tea. So the visibility is not the best in the river. However, you can see through it fairly decent because it's not completely opaque. And when I opened my eyes because I was just sure that I was right at the surface, and I didn't know why I hadn't burst through the surface yet. I'm still about 6 feet down, which is very, very strange, because in my mind I should have been right there at the top. And I'm ready to, when you're swimming and when you're in a pool or wherever you're swimming at, and you know where the surface is, you kind of have an idea that, okay, I'm going to swim to the surface and burst through and get that breath of air. So I'm ready to gab that gulp of air, and I realize I'm still at least 6 feet down in the water, and this is kind of like a panic hits you, and the panic hit me at that point. So I'm starting to thrash in the water kind of wildly, and not really swimming as much as I am just flailing around like a mental patient or something, and that's when it happened. Now, I'm sure most of you who have experienced this, the time kind of seems to slow way, way down. And maybe in other experiences, if you haven't had this life flashing before your eyes experience, maybe you've had another experience where time slowed down. And this is what happens. So time just kind of comes to a crawl or a stop even, who knows. But it slows down immensely. And the thought in my head is, okay, this is how it happens. This is how I'm gonna die. It's something you always wonder about. When I was a young child, I used to have these dreams where I got shot, and I thought it was really crazy because obviously as a child you're like, wow, why would I get shot? But I used to have these dreams, and I had them maybe 10-12 times when I was a kid. And it wasn't all the time, but I would dream it every so often that I was shot and died. But now here I am seeing my death unfold before me, and I'm not really as scared as I thought I would be. So in that moment, the flash came, and it comes with the sights, sounds, and smells, and just about every other sense or stimuli that is present in any memory. Just like a freight train, these memories roared through my head, and I saw myself as a tiny child, and as a boy, and as a young teen. I remember birthday parties, little league games, playing in the woods, fights I was in, girls I fancied, my parents' faces. Everything you can imagine was all there at once, and boom, gone just as quick. So my eyes were still open and looking, and the one thing I could see in this murky water was, the sun, but I wasn't really seeing that. I mean, it was there, but I'm seeing my life. It was a movie that's playing like in front of me, and that's really what I'm focused on. Like, the water is there and the sun's there, but what I'm really seeing is my life play out in front of me. And it's the most intense and personal movie you'll ever see. I can guarantee you that. With a bang, this movie just explodes into your head, and then it races through, it plays, and then it's gone. And when I realized that the movie was over, I found myself kicking like a wild man, and I had indeed broke the surface, so I'm finally breathing again, and it's this hot, moist Georgia swamp air, and I'm so darn glad that I have this hot air that I, was hating and cursing as I'm canoeing down this river. But now I'm just so glad to have it. And immediately I swam over to like the nearest stump near the edge of the water, and I'm holding on to it as I just kind of collect my wits. And I'm amazed at what happened, and I'm very, very happy to be alive, obviously. And during the whole event, which this probably lasted a couple seconds actually, no one had noticed anything that was amiss or whatever. I mean, you got 10 young boys, splashing around, acting the fool in the water, and this is just a couple seconds where most of my thrashing was underwater till I got to the top and took a big breath, and I swam over to the edge, so no one really knew what was going on. My friend swam by me, and was going to the place where we were getting in and out of the water, and the banks of the river are if you've ever been on a small river like that, you know how most of the riverbanks really kind of go out over the river sometimes, and sometimes it can be hard to find a place to get in and out at, basically. But so my friend noticed there was something wrong with me, asked me if I was okay, and I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I just almost drowned a second ago, but I'm good. And like kids do, we both brushed it off and went about our business, and he's back up the tree, jumping in the river and having fun, and I go to the bank and I'm drying off, and you know, I'd had enough swimming for the day, and I wasn't really thinking a whole lot of it. I wasn't pondering it. I mean, this is just something that happened, and, you know, you're a 13-year-old kid. Things happen, you move on. You just get over them quick. So that was what I had experienced. And it did happen to me one other time when I thought I was about to die. The same exact experience happened. You know, boom, it explodes into your head. You see your life flash. I mean, just rapid fire. Your whole life plays out in its entirety in a split second. And it's amazing and hard to explain if you haven't experienced the phenomenon. But if you have had it happen, you know exactly, like, you know, it's roaring by you like a jet chasing a UFO or something. It's just amazingly fast, but each and every instance is almost there, and it's so real, and it's very hard to explain. It's a very strange thing to have happen to you, and when you do have it happen, you're like, wow, that's crazy. And you know, if you ever been in a car accident or something like that and had it happen, you know, there's so many instances where this can play out, but many of us, including myself, wonder why do we see our entire life right before we kick off? What's the purpose of essentially reliving the whole thing again on fast forward? And I have a couple of theories about that, and I'd really love to hear what you guys think. There's a couple of reasons that I think that the mind replays our life in the instant before death, and although I believe the second one is my personal favorite, and the reason that I believe is probably the forerunner, or it has the most weight behind it. And I emphasize this because this is all in my mind. I don't know. These are my theories. The first possibility, I think, is if you are at all religious, maybe you are replaying everything to see if you're going to end up in one of the 6 versions of heaven or the 7 versions of hell. And just FYI, in researching for this video, I found out that there are many more versions of heaven and hell than I had previously thought. There are 6 accepted versions of heaven in the major religions of the world, and 7 accepted versions of hell in the major religions of the world. So that's maybe something that we'll do another video on some other day. But anyway, yeah, I think that maybe you're wondering, where am I going to go when I leave this body? Because I'm getting ready to go right now. So it seems like maybe a legit reason to casually replay your entire life real quick before you die. The second reason, and the one that I personally believe is probably the most likely, is maybe you're replaying your entire life to see that there is something that will get you out of this. You're looking for a solution. You're looking for a way out. You're replaying everything to see, like, hey, what do I have that will get me out of this situation that will keep me from dying? So I believe that you scour your life for that one piece of information that will get you out of this life and death predicament. Now, going back to my situation in the river, when the flash was over, I found myself thrashing at the surface. So maybe what I had found in my replay was to kick hard or swim hard or whatever. And I don't really know, because I don't know that I was even looking for anything. And I don't know that I found anything. It just seems like a logical reason for wanting that last precious second of life before you die to be spent replaying your entire life, right? But maybe there's another reason. Maybe you're replaying it as a distraction or something. Maybe you're waxing nostalgic right before you kick off or something, you know? I mean, these are outside shots, but there are many possibilities as to why we might replay our entire life right before we die. Like so many other things that we talk about and explore here on this channel, I think it comes down to personal belief. I don't know that even if we come to a consensus among many of us, will that mean that that is the truth? You know, probably not. It just means that that's what we believe is the truth. And like so many other things, we won't truly know until we do die. And even then, we may not. Who knows? So what do you guys think? What do you believe? Do you believe that we see our entire lives flash before our eyes just because? Do you think that there's a reason behind it? And if you do think there's a reason, what do you think that reason is? I would love to know, and I do look forward to hearing your answers. Please leave an answer, reply down in the comment box, and let's have a discussion around that. So thank you guys so very, very much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video. Thanks.